Hi, everyone. So, here are some signs that might indicate red flags. So, first one being highs and lows. So, by this, I mean like a roller coaster of a ride. Sometimes it's just as simple as like them not messaging consistently. And I don't mean like, oh, they didn't message you because you messaged them 10 times every day. I mean, like, when like sometimes they disappear for days at a time and it's very odd and you don't understand like where you guys are at, and it's just always like highs and lows. The highs being like, oh, maybe when you see them they give you a rose or they give you something or they take you somewhere nice, but then like they kind of disappear again, and they make you feel special, but then they like you don't feel as safe and secure, I would say. And safety and security could be different for everyone, and some might argue that like, well, someone might just have like trust issues and like and other stuff that's coming from another relationship. And sure, so someone can be working on that or through that, but it doesn't mean that the other person, like especially if they share it, like they might want to just like send a message like, hey, my phone's going to be away, like my phone's going to be here for a few hours, but I'll message you this time. Like, there's like when you're in a relationship with someone, you can take that step to also create that safety and security. It's not like, oh, but it's not my job, but it's like, well, you're creating a life with that person. And so when someone has their walls up a bit, well, you could help them. Like, you don't want to put them in those states of like high anxiety and stuff like that. And I understand that some people, it might be like too much. It's just like, oh, they want to know where I am at all times. Like, I'm not talking about those situations. I'm talking about like someone just wants to be like just reassured, like where they stand. And so, or it's like, oh, well, we just went on a few dates. Like, am I even allowed to ask like these questions? And it's like, I think at all times you can, like, it's like, oh, but I don't want to scare them. I feel like that comes up a lot. And especially like when I was younger too, it's like, oh, I don't want to scare them away. But it's like, but I think like later on when I decided that like, wait, no, why why am I putting myself in situations where these males like are feeling like, oh, if I say something that might be more vulnerable or something after a few dates, it's like, oh, they might scare them away. Then I'm just playing a game. So then when I start to be more upfront, it's like, sure, maybe not all men would like have taken that and just been like, oh, okay, let's continue. And it actually showed me earlier that like they couldn't handle certain types of conversations, certain types of like, it's not like, oh, I'm asking to be in a committed relationship right away, but like maybe you're asking that like, hey, like, are we on the same page right now? Like, what's going on? And it's like, oh, well, I'm dating other people, perhaps they're saying, or whatever the situation is. And you have to see, like, are you okay with that? Because sometimes when they're dating several other people, it's like, that's really confusing. Like, that's going to make anyone confused. It's like, oh, but I like how I am with this person. Oh, but I like how it's like, well, that's confusing and oftentimes unfair. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with situations that are just like, oh, well, that's how we ended up together. They were dating someone. And it's just like, sometimes there is one other person or something, but I feel like that's really confusing. And then that creates a sense of like insecurity with someone. And it's not fair to be like someone sitting at home knowing that like the other person's out on a date. So I think like figuring all that out and trying to make it not as messy as possible, because relationships, bringing two people together and like putting yourselves in these vulnerable situations where you're telling yourselves about yourself and going deep about certain conversations. And then if the person just disappears and you're like, oh, what happened? It's like, well, like, yeah, maybe they were talking to someone and they were confused, and the way they were with someone else they thought was like what they wanted. Doesn't mean what was right for them. But so you just try to make it not as messy as possible. And then that's where a lot of highs and lows could come in too. If they're like seeing other people, like it's so hard for like, especially when a guy is older, I find like it's like, how are you able to juggle more than one person. Like there's other things to do in life and you're just constantly going back and forth. It's like, that creates that high and low situation as well. Another example of a high and low situation is like when you're meeting someone and like they really put you on a pedestal and you just like, and I've done that like in my own head too, where I just think like, oh my God, we have so much in common. There's like so much like that we have gone through that are very similar and stuff like that. And it's like the first or second date. And it's like, well, whoa, calm down. Everyone's human. And putting someone on a pedestal, sometimes it's like it's like they can't do no wrong. So anytime they do, it's just like your world can shatter sometimes, or you might be putting them on a pedestal that's like, oh, are they better than you? Like, no, that's not true. So being mindful of like what kind of what the way you're working them up, and also the way they're working you up, because sometimes someone could be like saying all these amazing things to you and saying it out loud, because like I used to do it in my head, but like saying it out loud, and it's like, well, we don't know each other and they're working you up. And then sometimes those are the types of dates that end up like the person ends up like kind of disappearing or ghosting. So there could be different reasons for them doing that. Like they're just saying stuff and there's no reasoning behind, like not reasoning, there's no depth behind it. So they don't really care for it to be anything more. But they're just using that as an opportunity to maybe get closer to you or something and use you in a certain way. And so being mindful of that. And sometimes it's that like, you know, they actually are working you up and putting you on a pedestal. And then like maybe they find something out, which is not going to be a bad thing, but for them, the type of like golden pedestal that they put you on consisted of certain outlines. And it's like, oh wait, this didn't fit in that. And so then they like might disappear or something. And so being mindful of like these intense highs and lows, because then it could like imitate a roller coaster ride. Another possible like red flag to look out for is like when, like I understand that some people are very open and honest to a degree that like maybe others like don't feel like that's appropriate or that's not aligned with their values. So to each their own, but some people like on the first date, they're talking about like intimate stuff, but like in regards to past relationships. And it's like, well, like let's be mindful of the fact that like, you know, we want to create a safe and secure space with someone. And so sometimes that's like, wait, why are they like, if that feels icky to you or weird, take that as something and see what you think of it. And if there's other signs as well, or if like that's enough for you. Some people it's like that's enough for them to be like, okay, no, that's not okay. Another one, like, because this could also like be red flags like in new friendships as well. So in new friendships, it could be that they're like divulging like really personal information, especially like the first few times, but even like later on, like about like their own close friends, like things that you're like, whoa, I would never want someone that I would tell this stuff to tell that to anyone that they're close to. And so that could indicate that like, okay, well, like especially if you guys don't know each other that well, or if that's like their best friend, it's just like, or if they're not coming to you just like for help, this like one-off situation, or they're trying to keep that person's like, you know, personal information a little like unclear, so you can't really pinpoint which friend that is just because they need like help with the situation. So like being mindful of that, because then it's like, well, like what are they going to do with your personal information as the friendship goes on. So yeah, so overall, like, so these are just like a few of the red flags, but one thing I did want to point out is that like the reason why it's so good to look at different types of flags, and also green flags too. Like, so I don't want you to think that like, oh, well, Am I just like going to be on dates picking out red flags? Because no, we want to strengthen like seeing good in the world and seeing like more green flags and more good and abundance that's happening all around us. But especially like if you've been in relationships where it's ended up being like more on the toxic side, like even friendships and stuff, like, and you feel like, okay, you need to maybe proceed with a bit more caution, because maybe like you didn't see the flags, but like other friends did, or if you explain to other people, then they're like, oh yeah, like that person doesn't sound like a good person, or whatever it is. Then you need to be more mindful that like maybe you should be proceeding a bit more with caution, because then as you're figuring out and doing the work within to figuring out like why you've looked over some details, or like, and it's not even like it's your fault, because other people are like sometimes purposely lying to people to be in friendships or relationships with them, try to paint this perfect image of themselves, which I guess everyone tries to do it in their own way, but some people are more purposeful in doing that. And so being mindful that like, okay, well, there's like an intuition within that I could strengthen. And I've made like videos on these. I think they're just the smaller ones on TikTok as of right now, but I'll try to make one for YouTube as well. And so pretty much you want to strengthen your intuition so that like, or you could go to someone that like you really trust, and or a professional that you really trust, that like, okay, if you try to describe what's going on, that they're going to give you like an honest opinion and not just try to like sugarcoat things and say like, oh, it's okay, yeah, why not, that sounds great. Because like sometimes we could trust like people around us, but they might not have good senses. Like they might be in a great relationship, but that doesn't mean that they had a good sense of what's good or bad based on what you're describing. Sometimes it's that like they intuitively somehow deep down knew that like, oh, this person's like good for them, safe and secure, and maybe they can't put it into words, so they don't know. Or like the things that you're saying that the other person says to you is like, oh my God, this person sounds amazing, and so they might not be aware that like these are things that like you actually need to be watching out for as well. So yeah, like again, like that's I've like talked about it before, where like that's why you need to like strengthen your own self. So like give yourself the confidence, do practices like every day to strengthen like the love that you have within yourself, so that like when someone comes to you and is just like, oh my God, you're this, you're that, and it's like, oh, that's great, but it's not taking you to this such a high place that that is like, oh my God, someone finally sees me for who I am, because like you see you for who you are. And it's just like, oh, I'm so glad that this person values me too. But it's not like something you've never heard. Or sometimes like if someone else that you've been around is constantly putting you down about something, and then you meet someone else and they're doing the opposite. They're bringing you up about that specific thing. It's like you might just have these like rosy colored glasses on and might go that way. So being mindful of that too. And the same idea as like look at past relationship and one that you're going into is when sometimes your past relationship, even friendships, like you didn't like something specific about that relationship that like, always bothered you and stuff like that. And then the next one actually has the thing that you've always wanted. So again, it's going to put on that rose colored glasses on. And so you have to be mindful of the fact that like, it's like, it doesn't mean like that's the one, because sometimes it's what we want. What we think we want isn't sometimes. And so like, but it's great when it shows up, because then we can figure out like, is that what we want? But it comes with all these other things too. So it's not like they're just this thing. There's these other aspects of them, and this rosy colored glasses that gets put on because we're like, oh my God, they have this aspect of them or this characteristic that I like always really wanted, and that other person didn't have that at all. Then it's like, are we rolling over all the other red or green flags that are coming up so that we could make like a good decision going forward about if we want to continue going on a date or continuing the friendship with this person. So these are just some of the signs that might indicate some red flags. And again, like it's each person is different, and we need to strengthen our intuition, and learn to trust ourselves, because even if like we trust like a mentor or a professional or anyone, at the end of the day, like if we trust ourselves, then we know that that sometimes that's going to be the final decision. Like we could still go to someone, and we could still sometimes I still triple check with my own intuition, because I'm like, oh, but I really want it to be the other answer. But then when I get like a clear yes and no, and I do it several times, and I'm just like, okay, I just need to trust it no matter what the reason is. And sometimes I don't know what the reason is until like months or years after. Then sometimes I'm able to see that, like, oh, wow, like that really protected me. Because then whoever I was, like one time I was going on a date with someone, and it was going so great, and the second day but then I asked my intuition was like, no. And then I asked a few more times, it was no. And then I was just like, okay. And then a few years later, I bumped into them, and they were still this similar type of like person that they were when I first met them. And I was young, like a few years younger. So I had like grown a bit and stuff. And then I realized, like just a quick, like, 10, 15 minute conversation with them, I realized like, oh yeah, like we were never going to be compatible in that way. But I didn't see that. And that could be one of many reasons. And it doesn't mean that like the person was bad. The person was actually like a very good, kind person from what I knew, and from the work that they do. They seemed like a very incredible, down to earth person. But like for whatever reason, my intuition was also protecting both of us. Like it wasn't going to jive both ways. And so, and at one point, like I would have, like, some things that they said, I was like, oh, okay, sure, I could put up with that, because I didn't know myself fully yet. So I thought like, oh, okay, this is not a big deal. But now knowing myself, or when I bumped into them years later, it was like, oh, I wouldn't have been able to put up with that when like I ended up realizing what I really truly like and want in my life. It's like the things that they want and knew themselves to be, is like, that's not what I enjoyed. And it's like, of course there's compromise and stuff, but anyways, I just knew that like whatever the reason, there was a lot of it was really good that I trusted my intuition for both of us. And so I hope that helps. These are just some signs that might indicate red flags. And I'll see you all later. Bye.